just how do we get that pesky data into our databases in the first place? Um, so there's something that is called the ETL process that is not only for databases, it's for other things too, but it's usually talked about in databases. Um, it's also called the data reconciliation process. And diagram of what's going on here of basically extracting the data from the operational system, transforming it, and loading it into the warehouse. So we're going to talk about this briefly. And this is useful because it's not only just in databases, but something that you'll hear in other IT spaces. So in the extract phase one, we're getting data from multiple sources. And you can see in the prior slide on the left side here, this might be from multiple operational systems. They might be database files, like relational database files, like our access files. They could also be flat files, like CSV files or whatever, or from all sorts of different structures and places. So we're grabbing a bunch of those together for this transfer. There's two types that you'll hear about, which is the static or the initial load of when you're gathering it all and moving it over. And then there's the incremental ongoing updates that you do over time. Set at whatever pace makes sense for your company. It might be very frequent, or it might be kind of spread out. Just depends. So once we've captured that data, we need to transform it. So that includes data cleaning or scrubbing, which uses often uses pattern recognition and other AI techniques to figure out what is good data, what is bad data. We spent a lot of time this quarter looking at AI gone wrong. So if we're using AI for this process, we know that there's a lot to think about of what is classified as bad data, and like programming those to work appropriately. But it's a necessary process to filter out what attributes are needed to be pulled, making sure that everything's named correctly. The transforming includes converting things like dates. So like if you think about like some data coming from the EU and some data coming from the US, the month and date order will be switched from each other. And so making sure that those are ordered the same way. So some of that data is going to have to be transformed to match the other, right? Same thing with like currency. Like if you're McDonald's and you have companies all over the place, you're going to have to convert the US dollars to the euros and the yen and all the currencies from all over the place and convert it into the same metric so that they can be aggregated together so you can do your analyses and whatever you're going to do, right? There's also things like just simple coding differences. For example, like we see this in surveys a lot where like our general demographic information, or like say you have HR information from across the world. Some people might have their systems set up where they're actually listing the gender, like male, female, whatever they have in their system. So you have not only different languages coming into play, but you might actually have some people that have it numerically coded instead of writing it out. So it might be like 0, 1 or 1 and 2. It might have, some people will have more than just the binary options. So how do you work those together? Some might have like male, female, but they use M and F instead of writing it out. So all these little things that you need to code into a unified system. Sometimes you'll even have things like, if you think of a spreadsheet and the data is organized this way, a wide file, and for what you're doing, it needs to be a long file or vice versa. Like the way that they're storing the data is different. That happens a lot with data that is stored over time. So you have multiple checkpoint entries, whether that's like sales over time or like survey points, whatever it is, data will be stored in different ways. And so transforming the data for those kind of things, all of that is included in this step 2. Once all of that data is transformed and unified and cleaned, then it's loaded into the warehouse. There's 2 different versions of this as well, which is the refresh mode is basically the data initial captures, same as the static initial load for the extract. So that happens when the database is first, or the warehouse is first created, and then you have an update mode for that ongoing maintenance, incremental data captures. And what ends up happening is you'll have that update mode going for a while, and then it'll get laggy, and then they might rebuild the whole thing and have another refresh mode. So this process happens when you're going from the operational system to the data warehouse. Also happens from the data warehouse to the data marts. Okay, so this process is just a general thing for anytime you're moving large amounts of data from one place to another.